The new sheriff of Mojave County was this week's guest at the October meeting of the Lake Havasu Republican Women's Club. Meet Sheriff Jim McCabe.
My name is Jim McCabe. I am your new sheriff if you're a Mojave County resident. I've served Mojave County for about 30 years now. I actually started out as a volunteer. I was a search and rescue member on horseback. And that's when we had horses involved in the sheriff's office. If I had my way, we still would. But they came out with side-by-sides and quads and those type things, and pretty much got rid of the search and rescue unit. But I was in it for about 6 months when I was approached by a sergeant and said, "Why don't you come to work for the sheriff's office and become a dispatcher? We need a dispatcher." Well, I was in the U.S. Air Force, and during the period of time I was in the Air Force for 4 years, I was a firefighter, and every firefighter EMT had to do their stint in dispatch. So I knew a little bit about it, and I went and applied for the job, and I got it. And after about 6 months working in dispatch, the sheriff came in one day and said, "Why don't you consider going onto the street?" I said, "Okay." So I went to the police academy in Tucson, graduated 3.5 months later, came back to Kingman. In those days, we didn't really have a training program. They had, you go ride with this deputy that has some experience for 5 days, and then we'll give you a keys and car and a gun and just, you know, and go out and have at it. And so after a few months of that, I came into work one day, and they called my number on the radio to go see the patrol captain. And I was living in Kingman at the time, working in Kingman. I said, "You've been transferred. You're now working in Mojave Valley. We just fired everybody down there. And you have 90 days to move." So I started my next assignment in Mojave Valley. And it was a new assignment because there was nobody else there. Everybody got fired. So you kind of got to kind of shape it. And so I started doing programs. I started neighborhood watch programs, and I started business watch programs. I ultimately started the DARE program that we continue on with today, and we're in 11 schools. I became a rescue diver. I started working the boats on the lake and on the river. So in my time there, I got to get a whole bunch of knowledge, just a bunch of it. And one day I got called back to Kingman and says, "Yeah, you're transferred again." And we're making you a lieutenant. You actually had a test for it, but I was on the list. And you're going to start another new program. This is going to be called the Shock Incarceration Unit. And it was out at the airport, and it was a boot camp for youthful offenders, first-time offenders on drugs. And we started that program. It was a highly educational program. Everybody that left there had a GED. 2 people had a scholarship to MCC. If you didn't have a job, we found you a job. We got your food handlers cards. We got you certified in tune-ups, lubes, oils, changes, and we customized the education program so that we brought in a computer lab. Each computer hung from the ceiling. Each of the computers were programmed to help this person obtain a GED based on their current mental abilities. And we had people in there from 6-year-old age to maybe 11. So every computer had to be programmed specifically for that student. Brought in a tutor from MCC, and everybody left with a GED. At the time, I was also a canine handler in charge of the narcotics unit. And we averaged on the couple of years I was in narcotics, that's when Mojave County was known as the meth capital of the world. And I don't know if you guys were here for that. It was not pleasant. And we averaged 50 meth labs a year. That's almost 1 a week. And we could have done more than 1 a week. We just didn't have the staff to do it. I also was in charge of the DARE program and neighborhood watch program, all community relations. And it was basically a 3-prong attack on drugs. We're going to do it through enforcement, and we're going to do it through education, and we're going to do it through rehabilitation. And you know what? It worked pretty well. And I, during that whole time, was working for Tom Sheehan, of course, and I reported to him directly. And one day he says, "Hey, we're going to promote you to chief deputy if you want the job." And I said, "Well, you got to promise me you're going to run twice, because if you don't, I don't have enough years to retire." And he said, "Okay." And so we were together for 18.5 years after that. And now, here I am. Tom said, you know, it was, I'm sure you guys all know the backstory to it. You know, his wife had had some medical issues. She had gone into the hospital 3 times for 1 month. He called me at home, said, or I think he texted, I'm in the back of an ambulance taking Joe to the hospital. And I knew that 3rd time what was going to happen. And he came into the office and said, I'm leaving. And I've got to get out and take care of family and my grandkids and go down to Phoenix and all that kind of stuff. Well, what are you going to say? You know, I mean, I didn't want him to go, but he certainly served and did his dues and did well by all of Mojave County. So he's supposed to have moved to the Phoenix area this month, and he won't tell me where he's at. So that's a little bit about me. Like I said, when you consider my volunteer time before I actually became employed by the Sheriff's Office, I've been with the Mojave County Sheriff's Office for a little bit over 30 years. I worked my way up from the bottom up to the top. The advantage to that is the guys can't get away with too much because they come in and try and give you a bunch of bull and you go, yeah, I know better than that. You know? But it's a good place to be. I'm tickled to be here. I am an associate member of the Bullhead Women's, Colorado River Women's, and the Kingman, because I live in Bullhead, my office is in Kingman, and occasionally I would go to those meetings. Tom would never let me come to this one because he treasured you guys so much. Yeah. And so he never said, Jim, would you go down there? No, I never got this one. So it's my first time here. I have signed up to become an auxiliary member today, and I thank you very much for your warm welcome. Thank you. Mojave County Sheriff's Office substations. Over here is Beaver Dam, and we have a substation there, and we serve Beaver Dam in Scenic. It's right by Mesquite. And in fact, to get to our northernmost offices, we leave Kingman, drive to Las Vegas, drive up, go to Mesquite, cut across back into Arizona. To get to Colorado City, we actually go up into Utah and back into Arizona. So it's quite an undertaking to get up there. And while we're on it, actually, you'll see there's the Kingman substation. That's where the headquarters is. Mojave Valley substation, Lake Havasu substation. Mojave County is 13,500 square miles. 99% of Mojave County is unincorporated and the responsibility of the Sheriff's Office. This is the Kingman office. My window's right in there somewhere. This is, I was actually the, yeah. This is our Mojave Valley substation. This is right up the street at Lake Havasu substation. Yeah. Here is our Beaver Dam substation. This is our new jail, relatively new. It's been over, what, 4 years? It's in Kingman. Jail currently holds 688 people. It's expandable up to 1,134, I believe. When we built this jail, we were in the old jail, which was built for 320 people. We're pushing in about 420 people. We're getting lawsuits with being too crowded, and I'm going to tell you what how the courts feel about this stuff. They don't care if you don't have the money. Not having the money is never a valid reason. And look what's been happening in California. You can see they're releasing all the people out of jails. Knowing that we were going to have a federal lawsuit, we went out and put the money together to build a jail that will suits our needs. And this is really a good jail. See, the cells are 6 by 13 there. Not a whole lot of room. There's your little toilet right there. These are the bunk beds, and there's a little table and chair that sticks out. This is what they call the day room, and depending on what kind of classification you have within the jail depends on what kind of time you can spend in this out here in the day room. But normally these doors will be open in the morning and closed in the evening, and you can lounge around at these tables and do whatever you can do with inside that pod. And one thing you got to keep in mind in county jails, 90% of the people are inmates. 90% of those people have not been convicted. They've been arrested. They're not convicted. So it means they have all the rights that you have, basically. I mean, we can take security and those type of things into consideration, but they're not convicted prisoners. So we can't use a lot of people out road gangs and that type of thing. Now those 10% that are convicted, if they're going to be spending anything over a year, they go to DOC in Phoenix. Under a year, they'll stay with us. But that also cuts way back on the amount of population that I can actually use out on work crews and that type of thing. But we do it. There's a control center. This person will sit at this control center, and every section of the jail that you go through, you get basically locked in between two doors. And there's cameras there, and you'll buzz, and she'll look down at you and see that person right there, and you'll say, I'm so-and-so, and I'm going to so-and-so, and she pushes the button and unlocks that door. If you're not supposed to be there, you're not getting out. This might be familiar to you. It's right there. Mojave County Sheriff's Office. Mojave County has the most amount of boating use days in the state of Arizona. We use up about 45 to 50% between excuse me, Lake Havasu, the river, and Lake Mojave. Consequently, we're always funding boats. There's our fleet right now as it stands, about a dozen boats. We have 4 deputies, 1 sergeant, 1 lieutenant, and a minimum of 4 boats in the water at all times. That's not true. They're not out there at night, you know. One guy was out there at night and he crashed into the island. It was not good. But we send them out at night when we're as needed, but they're not patrolling 24/7 out there. I don't know who wrote that. It was probably me. We were just talking about this a little bit. This is actually an old Wells Fargo bank truck. And Buster turned me onto this. And it was years and years ago, and Wells Fargo was giving these away to law enforcement agencies to use an armored car to go into hot situations. And that's what we have and we utilize. I do have one of those big MRAP things, but I didn't want it. And I haven't used it. I haven't pushed it into service because, frankly, I think it's a little bit of overkill. If you'd see it, you'd understand what I'm saying. Thing's huge. Our canine unit. I, like I said, was a canine officer for many years. We currently have these 4 dogs and these 4 officers in service. This program is not funded by the county. This program is done strictly on donations. And each one of those dogs costs about 12 grand. 4, yeah. Our DARE officer, like I said, we started this program in 1989. I was the first DARE officer in Mojave County. I started it up in 11 schools. We're still at 11 schools. Troy's been doing it for a long time and doing a very fine job for us. School resource officer, he's also a canine officer. This dog is primarily used for drugs in the schools, in the lockers and that type of thing. He works at the Kingman High School. Our airplanes, we have a couple airplanes. These are drug seizure airplanes. And we primarily use them for jail transportation things, so that when we have to go and extradite somebody from San Diego, it costs a lot of money to do it commercially. You have to send 2 officers with it and everything. It's really, really costly. So we use our planes, our pilot, and it saves us a great deal of money every year. Search and rescue. We have Lake Havasu, King, and Bullhead, Arizona Strip. We have search and rescue that does everything. Here you'll see them, they'll do helicopter rescues. Out here they're doing fire control 2 years ago up in the Wallapies. Mountains, helicopters. This is our sheriff's posse. These are people who aren't actually doing rescue operations, but they're able to assist us in a lot of other areas. Recruitment for personnel. Republican picnic in the Wallapies. We do the Democrats too. And food drives, and this is our training room up in the Kingman office where they serve a week's worth of indoctrination before they start. Our honor guard, dignitaries. This was at the Wallapies this year, as a matter of fact. Were anybody up there in the Wallapies? I was there. And those guys are real sharp. There's a young lady here that asked me a little bit earlier what the the sheriff does. I don't really know. No, this is what they do. We are actually under statute by the state of Arizona of what we have to do. The sheriff's office has to provide. We have to provide all this stuff. And it includes things like we have to run a jail. We have to have a civil department where we run civil paperwork through. We have to have a sex offenders office. We have to have a search and rescue unit. We have to provide peace and security for the citizens of Mojave County. That, in essence, is what it does. The sheriff actually has more responsibility than any law enforcement agency within this county. Running a police department and running a sheriff's office is not even in the same paragraph. Here again, I told you about the size of Mojave County, 13,000. It says 311. I saw it on another piece that it was 13.5. We'll see. But uh-oh. Kingman population 28,000. Square miles is 33.79. Bullhead population 39,540, 61 square miles. Havasu population 52,527, 45,000 miles. Population in the unincorporated area 80,051. Square miles in the unincorporated area is 13,311. So that's what I have to serve. Square miles per officer. And here we're going to compare it. You have the Sheriff's Office, Kingman Police, Bullhead Police, Lake Havasu Police. And as you can see, there's not really much of a comparison. One of our largest difficulties is strictly logistics. How do we get here from there in a timely fashion? And it's difficult. This is pretty interesting here. I have 92 officers here. You see Kingman has 57, Bullhead City has 77, Lake Havasu City has 83, and none of them have anywhere close to the amount of responsibility and services to provide to the public as the Sheriff's Office. Ratio of officers per 1,000. Sheriff's Office has got 1.15, Kingman 2, Bullhead 1.9, Lake Havasu 1.6. I'm about 53 officers short of what I should have. Here's our call load. This actually was 2012. I think 13 numbers are out and it broke 50,000. Bullhead City 19,008, KPD 21,000, Lake Havasu 18,000. Dispatch FTEs, that means dispatch full-time employees. I have 14. Bullhead's got 16, KPD's got 16, Lake Havasu City's got 16. They have 2 more than I do, have half the calls, and they pay them more money. I'm going to compare this to the closest county that we have within Arizona that are in our statistical values. Mojave County, 13,000 miles. Yavapai County, 8,124. Population of Mojave County, 80,000. Yavapai County, 87,000. Number of sworn personnel, Mojave County, 92. Yavapai, 143. And that's the end of the slideshow. So when you want to know what the sheriff does, most of all, he's trying to figure out how to make all this stuff work. It's hard, you know. We have some very good people that have always helped us, Sue and Buster and such. But it's time now that we really need to look at what we're going to do with the sheriff's office. And you may ask yourself, well, I reside in Havasu and I have my own police department. How does that really affect me? Well, you just saw that 99% of Mojave County is outside the cities. You can't be an island. And what's bad for Mojave County is going to be bad for the cities. So I guess what I'm asking is for your support. Thank you.